it gets bad, Jesus is coming. There is no Bible that says before it gets bad, Jesus is coming.
Right.
That's right. You see bad as birth pains. The birth pains is the bad.
That's right. The Yellowstone,
Yeah.
the Yellow Canaries, the Canary Island, which I've been preaching on ever since I got out of prison and in prison. I started studying it.
Yeah.
He saw it in prison, didn't he?
And here it is, hundreds of earthquakes at Canary Island. It's already split, and if a big earthquake hits there in the Canary Islands, what is going to happen, it will destroy the entire east coast of the United States, all of Florida, basically.
The tsunami.
The tsunami will be
Come from it.
multiple stories high.
Yes.
And I told you about Charleston, right? I had one of my young people just text me 2 weeks ago and had this vision, and they've had it twice, and it's exactly what I saw. And it really got me very stirred, because this is a real godly praying young lady. But several years back, this is more like a night vision, and then I see dark clouds beginning to come in the air. I said, oh, that's a storm coming. It's here, here, and here. Then I look down, and there's tourists, and they're taking pictures, and I'm knocking on this glass window saying, you better get out of the way. Don't be down there. Get up here. And I remember I had a stack of books. I remember my wife was there. My wife was actually getting ready to contact her sisters, wherever I was. And I'll tell you where I was in a minute. All of a sudden, I turned, and I am at a beachfront. And there is a bridge. It's a very high bridge. And this was the weird part. I saw the Twin Towers ghosted come up out of the water and disappear. I thought, well, no, the Twin Towers were taken down by a terrorist attack. All of a sudden, I saw this bridge shaking, and I saw the bridge collapse. Then a tsunami that was, I'm going to estimate, it looked as high, Jim, as that second story up there. It was high, and it was coming in, and it was going to take out only God knows what.
They're warning us right now. I never thought, I've not lived in a day where it's shaking like it is now. And that's why these are in the Bible. This is what changed me, is studying detail all the Word of the living God.
Do you still have that paper that you wrote?
31 things. This is
Look at this.
amazing.
Watch Turkey,
Yes.
Russia, Korea, Middle East, and China.
This is in 1999 God gave him this.
And then you've got down here, you got a whole thing about the weather being out of control, death by water.
Yes.
And this one right here just jumped out at me. Terrorism, planes.
Have you studied Turkey at all?
Yeah, and about 7 years ago, we were in Israel, and I was talking to a couple guys, and of course everybody there's in the military, so this isn't some special meeting. But I'm talking to a guy who's pretty knowledgeable, and I said, is your biggest enemy Iraq, Syria, or Iran? And they said, none of them. That we have enemies, but we can take them out that quick. We have the ability and the methods that if we have to go to war, it'll be over in a short time.
Yeah.
And I said, who's your danger? He said, Turkey. Well, I'm sitting here thinking, you got to be kidding me. They said, no, Turkey has the ability, the military numbers, and the ability, because you have to remember there was something called the Ottoman Turkish Empire.
Yes.
And the Ottoman Turkish Empire ruled from 1517 to 1917, and it began to collapse by 1921, and it became the Republic of Turkey, which is the country of Turkey. Turkey, after Israel became a nation especially, there were Turks and people from that part of the world who wanted to reform the Ottoman Turkish Empire. And what this man has done, and the man who is presently the head of Turkey, is an absolute radical dictator. And he is trying to organize 50 Islamic nations to unite themselves to come against Israel. And so in the Bible, in the book of Daniel, many people said the king of the north is Russia. But if you look, the king of the north in Daniel would be Turkey. And there is all this conflict going on with Israel and Turkey at that time of the end. So this is, again, it's one of those things you mentioned. Here we go into another prophetic scenario that's just right in front of us.
Yeah, I didn't know Turkey at all, as far as why would God give me the Turkey to watch? Things to watch. Watch Turkey. Watch China. Watch.
Did you ever get, like, in those words, anything specific that you could, now I'm interviewing him now, Anything that you've never really shared with people, but now you've seen it come to pass, or now that you know, but you remember that God really dealt with you about
there's
that?
some things that I think maybe it's time. One of them I kind of left back was that there's going to be an atomic bomb in the Mideast. There will be a bomb dropped.
Oh, wow.
And that was with the 31 things. And 9/11 happened a year and a half after he gave it to me, and I saw the people running in terror, and and when it really happened, it was like, my God, I've been here before. I've seen this. I've seen this movie, you know. I do want people to order your books today.
Yes.
The Prophetic Future Concealed. If you want to give $70 in honor of Israel this week, and help us to be a part of the summer of teamwork. And teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes.
And so this is the teamwork offering at $70. Everyone will give $70. We'll just call it the teamwork offering too. Mm-hmm. And end time codes and Israeli prophetic words, codes. Mm-hmm. The Prophetic Future Concealed in Israel. These are books that will help you to know what's going on.
Yes.
Based on the Word of the living God.
And remember this, though, the very people that are trying to pull up stuff, it will come back on them eventually.
Mm-hmm.
It's like rolling the rock down,
I'm
right?
telling you, you got to leave everything alone.
Yes.
That's right.
And only if somebody wants to, like if they've been a drug addict, drug dealer, prostitution, and they want to use their testimony, this is what I was.
Yes.
But it's legal biblically for them to use it, because even Paul said, I killed people, I caused people to blaspheme.
Right.
But he said it to testify of the life change.
Yeah.
So your testimony is different.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when it comes to
Testimony's
you
powerful.
pulling up somebody else,
Yeah.
no, not going to do it.
Let's be prepared, and let's do what God's called us to do.
Yes.
We'll be right back with today's broadcast right after this special message. We have something so special today. This is probably we are.
There have been actually some cases which have tried to come up.
I know that. See, that's why we're fighting it.
And we're seeing it a good bit on the West Coast, which is, as most people know, is much more liberal and doesn't have the Bible foundation that the Southeast has. Also seeing it a little bit in the Northeast, where, to say, for example, look at what happened recently in California. You cannot use the Bible now to counsel someone and say, now, the Bible tells you that this is your lifestyle. This is the way you live. And so they're taking the Bible and making it an outdated, ancient manuscript that is not for the culture of our times. So to use the Scripture and to teach it, there's a great concern among some of the churches at the West Coast that they're actually, and I don't think this will happen because of if we can protect the Constitution, but they're actually saying that they're afraid they're going to say you cannot even use the Bible to preach from your pulpit. You can encourage, you can motivate, but you can't go, you can't,
That's scary.
It's
that's where we
extremely-
really are there, people.
Yeah, no, we're there.
And there are people, and they speak out against the Bible. The politicians do. And I don't understand why church people are so quiet.
Yeah.
Maybe God allowed me to go to prison. Most people hate that when I say that. But all things work together for
Joseph
good.
did. But
Yeah.
do you know the timing of Joseph? Do you know why God had allowed him to go?
Why?
God allowed him to go because he held the key to saving the world.
He saved the world.
Because he came
The known
out.
world.
You'll remember he came out when Pharaoh had the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And the butler and the baker were the key, if you'll remember that, the story.
Mm-hmm.
They were the key to saying, wait a minute, I know a guy. Had he not been in the prison, he'd have never met those two guys. If he'd have worked for Potiphar's house, the whole situation would have been different. He would have just been a servant of Potiphar. Mm-hmm. And so God kept him 13 years
Oh, God.
under a lie somebody told, then brought him out, and he ended up saving the world with hey, Jim, with food.
That's right.
Go to Jeremiah. I'll give you a nugget that'll apply to you. Go to Jeremiah, where Jeremiah was saying, Babylonians are coming back. And the priest wanted to kill him. They wanted him dead. And the priests were, I'm going to paraphrase this because I did a study on a commentary on the Old Testament that's going to come out soon. So I went through the whole book of Jeremiah, of course, and this is why I found this out. So Jeremiah is being persecuted by, can I say it? Preachers. And the preachers are saying, you are a nut.
Yeah.
Because the prosperity is here. We've got food. We're doing everything right. And this is what they said. God would never destroy his city, Jerusalem. That's what they said. And so he got so mad when they wanted to kill him, he said, I'm not going to say anything.
That's what
else.
they're saying about America. God's never going to judge
No,
America.
no. God loves us too much. And preachers are saying this.
They are?
And then they estimate it was 38 to 40 years later, the Babylonians came. This is so crazy. And as they're leading the king out, and they poked his eyes out, and they're leading his sons and the people out, one of the head of the guards looks and says, you're the guy that said we were coming, aren't you? He said, yes, sir. He said, you can stay here. And Jeremiah ended up living somewhere, you know, the story of how he buried everything and buried but the point that I make is that you have to keep doing what God's called you to do, despite the people.
Yes.
And I think God kept you there let me say this, had that not happened, you would not be doing anything of what you're doing right now. You probably wouldn't even be in the prophetic. You wouldn't even be close to being in the prophetic.
Yeah.
And God lets you know, you go there. Would you have gotten this in Charlotte or Fort Mill? Never.
No.
Because you were a very busy man.
You had to be quiet.
You know
You
what?
have to be quiet to hear from
Oh
God.
boy, you just said what I was about to say. Sometimes God has to pull you away just to say, listen. I feel led to look at the camera and say this to some of the people who might be watching right now. It is very important because Jim's just sharing his heart of some things he's been through you probably don't know about, that he's dealt with, that God has brought him back. But it is very important, and I want you to hear me very carefully, that anyone in ministry, Facebook, for example, can help you reach a lot of people, but people on Facebook will say whatever they want to say and hide under a fake name.
And it never gets erased.
Never gets erased. And then here's the sad thing. Then people repeat it like it's fact.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it can be an absolute, I heard someone who knew, then it's like boom, 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 boom. And next thing you know, you got 100,000 people believing it.
Yeah.
Now you listen to me.
And it'll be regurgitated.
Oh,
up
over and
again.
over. Over
And
and
I
over.
mean, I've had people say, well, you know, I read on Facebook that you did da-da-da-da-da-da. And it was written 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And somebody picked it up and passed it around like it's now.
No, you've had ministers that had stuff happen 30, 40 years ago that someone told the story, then someone tells it like it's now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, we'll tell you something. You can be sued for defamation of character even on Facebook, just so you'll know. But I want to say this to you. A believer should never take information that you don't know, go right to the source and say, what about this? Or never take, I have a policy. I never listen to what any former employee of any ministry has to tell me about that ministry.
Oh, that's
Ever.
good. Yeah.
Because there's two sides to it.
That's right.
There's two sides to
Wow.
But I want you to know, you may go through the impossible.
it. There you go.
But there's an old song that says God specializes in things thought impossible. And that's why what they're doing to the president, and I had to ask this question before we go into that question.
Yeah.
Do you know they're saying people are having nervous breakdowns because of the Russia thing,
Oh, yeah.
because of Trump, and
Yeah.
because they're just seeing it every day.
Yeah.
Everybody, you think, well, we won that one, and then the
Here
next
comes
minute
another
we
one.
lost.
Okay.
I mean, you never win longer than 24 hours, do you? And then we go to, we lost
Another
the next
su-
one.
another- okay, give Perry
Okay,
two
I'm going
things.
to talk about two presidents, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, and let's talk about collusion. For a fact, when Benjamin Netanyahu was running for prime minister,